union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
My friends, as a public service, I've got the convention schedule for the Democratic National Convention starting today in Charlotte, North Carolina. You might want to take notes. At 4 o'clock p.m., there'll be an opening flag-burning ceremony sponsored by CNN. At 4:05, the singing of Goddamn America, led by Reverend Jeremiah Wright. At 4:10 p.m., the Pledge of Allegiance to Obama. At 4:15 p.m., the ceremonial I Hate America, led by Michelle Obama. At 4:30 p.m., tips on how to keep your man trustworthy and true to you while you travel the world with Hillary Clinton. At 4:45, Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson will have a seminar entitled How to Have a Successful Career Without Having a Job. At 5 p.m., Great Vacations I've Taken on the Taxpayer's Dime travel log with Michelle Obama. At 5:30 today, Elliot Spitzer speaks on family values via satellite. At 5:45, a tribute to all 57 states with Nancy Pelosi. At 8:30 p.m. tonight, the airing of grievances by the Clintons. At 9 o'clock tonight, Bias in Media, how we can make it work for you. It's a tutorial sponsored by CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, The Washington Post, and The New York Times. At 9:15 tonight, a tribute film to brave freedom fighters incarcerated at Gitmo by Michael Moore. And finally, at 9:45 tonight, a personal finance seminar. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Real Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com and on Facebook and on YouTube and on Real TV and in the book Real Truth, Stay Angry. And, of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Our call-in number, 877-254-7524. My friends, welcome back to a brand spanking new week. Given the news that I've got waiting to present to you, I figured I might as well start with a laugh. Of course, it's not really funny. If you're planning on watching the Democratic National Convention, my question is, why? Item from Agence France Presse. A court in the Maldives has ordered a public flogging for a 16-year-old girl who confessed to having premarital sex in a ruling that Tuesday triggered widespread criticism from rights groups. The unnamed teenager was convicted on her confession under Sharia law after her family complained she'd had sex with a 29-year-old man in July, unquote. My friends, if the idea of France, of Maldives, invoking Sharia law to whip a 16-year-old girl, if that scares you, well, then how scared will you be when you realize that some judges want to implement parts of Sharia law here? You don't have any daughters, do you? Item from TVNZ.com. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has urged the world powers to set a clear red line for Tehran's atomic activities and said they'd failed to convince it of their resolve to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear arms, unquote. Mr. Netanyahu. Mr. Netanyahu. Why are you speaking to the world about preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons? Have you gotten the impression that the world gives a damn? The world doesn't give a damn, so slap yourself, number one. Number two, why are you talking? Why are you speechifying? Why aren't you in some underground headquarters there in Israel ordering an immediate strike on Iran? Well, I'll tell you, this guy's a good talker. I see why he went into politics. I wish he would shut up and take some action. Item from moneynews.com. Take immediate steps to protect your wealth now. That's exactly what many well-respected economists, billionaires, and noted authors are telling you to do. Experts such as Mark Favor, Peter Schiff, Donald Trump, and Robert Wiedemer. According to them, we're on the verge of another recession, and this one will be far worse than what we experienced during the last financial crisis. Mark Faber, the noted Swiss economist and investor, has voiced his concerns for the U.S. economy numerous times during recent media appearances, stating, quote, I think somewhere down the line we will have a massive wealth destruction. I would say that well-to-do people may lose up to 50% of their total wealth, unquote. When he was asked what sort of odds he put on a global recession happening, the economist famous for his ominous predictions quickly answered, quote, 100%, unquote. Faber points out that this bleak outlook stems directly from the Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke's policy decisions and the continuous printing of new money referred to as quantitative easing in the media. Faber's pessimism is matched by well-respected economist and investor Peter Schiff, the CEO of Euro-Pacific Capital. Schiff remarks that the stock market collapse we experienced in 2008, quote, wasn't the real crash. The real crash is coming, unquote. Schiff didn't stop there. Most alarming is his belief that daily life will get dramatically worse for U.S. citizens. Quote, if we keep doing this policy of stimulus and growing government, it's just going to get worse for the average American. Our standard of living is going to fall. People who are expecting Social Security can't get all that money. People expecting government pensions can't get all their money. We simply can't afford to pay them, unquote. Equally critical of the current government and our nation's economy is real estate mogul and entrepreneur Donald Trump, who's warning that the United States could soon become a large-scale Spain or Greece, teetering on the edge of financial ruin. Trump doesn't hesitate to point out America's unhealthy dependence on China. Quote, when you're not rich, you have to go out and borrow money. We're borrowing from the Chinese and others, unquote. It is this massive debt that worries Trump the most. Quote, we're going up to $16 trillion in debt very soon, and it's going to be a lot higher than that before he gets finished, Trump says, referring to President Barack Obama. When you have debt in the $21 to $22 trillion range, you're talking about a credit downgrade no matter how you cut it, unquote. In a recent appearance, Trump went so far as to say that the dollar is, quote, going to hell, unquote. Donald Trump knows a thing or two about money, my friends. He says the dollar is going to hell. I say Barack Obama has been the president since January 2009. I say there's an election coming up. I say you have got to be mentally challenged if you want the guy who contributed so much to our destruction to have another 4 years to contribute even more. We'll be back.
And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, He has declared Him. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 16. Messiah's Mansion, the life-size replica of the ancient Hebrew tabernacle, is coming to Loveland, Colorado. Since 2003, with 46 exhibits in 15 states, this living museum takes you back over 3,000 years into the desert between Egypt and Israel, when millions banded together to build a tabernacle for their God. Free tours are great for school outings, history buffs, and families. Messiah's Mansion, September the 8th through the 16th, open from 1 until 7 p.m. just north of Johnson's Corner, exit 254 in Loveland. Go to coloradosanctuary.com. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
Welcome back to Real Truth. It's not Monday, it's Tuesday, but it sure feels like Monday. I hope you had a good Labor Day yesterday, complete with barbecue, etc. Back to the depressing part. What the hell's going on in this? How much do we owe, by the way? How much in debt is the United States of America? Well, you heard it earlier in the broadcast. We're just about $18 trillion, unless the number is really $25 trillion. How is that possible? Let's listen.
Howdy, Pilgrims. Happy Stew here. Point of information, the first ever GAO, Government Accountability Office, audit of the Federal Reserve was carried out in the past few months due to the Ron Paul Alan Grayson amendment to the Dodd-Frank bill, which passed last year. Jim DeMint, a Republican senator, and Bernie Sanders, an independent senator, led the charge for a Federal Reserve audit in the Senate, but watered down the original language of House Bill H.R. 1207 so that a complete audit would not be carried out. Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan, and various other bankers vehemently opposed the audit and lied to Congress about the effects an audit would have on markets. Nevertheless, the results of the first audit in the Federal Reserve's nearly 100-year history were posted on Senator Sanders' webpage. What was revealed in the audit was startling. $16 trillion had been secretly given out to U.S. banks and corporations and foreign banks everywhere from France to Scotland. From the period between December 2007 and June 2010, the Federal Reserve had secretly bailed out many of the world's banks, corporations, and governments. The Federal Reserve likes to refer to these secret bailouts as an all-inclusive loan program, but virtually none of the money has been returned, and it was loaned out at 0% interest. So when your representatives and folks in Washington, D.C. tell you that our national debt is 14.3 or what have you, trillion dollars, you can add 16 trillion to that was given out behind closed doors when none of us were looking. Pappy Stu said it, and I'm out and on the sun.
Well, my friends, you don't mind if the Obama administration hands out trillions of your dollars, do you? Nah, come on, it's all good fun. Put them in the White House for another 4 years and see how many more trillions of our dollars he gives away. Now, let's change topics. You've heard about Glass-Steagall, and you've heard about how the repealing of Glass-Steagall hurt this nation. So what the hell is Glass-Steagall? Well, I'm here to answer that question. This video, like the previous one, is linked on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. This is about 11 minutes long. I'm sure as hell not going to play 11 minutes. Let's play maybe 5 or 6 minutes just to let you know what Glass-Steagall is. When the show is over, you're going to go to my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio, and you're going to watch the whole video, and you will be edified. Here we go.
I thought it would be neat to celebrate November 12, 1999, as the biggest financial meltdown in my lifetime, and give thanks to the politicians who voted for the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, or the Financial Services Modernization Act of 1999. First, a little background. The Glass-Steagall Act of 1933 established the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to insure bank deposits and required banks to choose between a lender, a bank, or an underwriter, a brokerage. Here we see at Roosevelt's immediate right and left were Senator Carter Glass of Virginia and Representative Henry Steagall of Alabama, the two most prominent figures in the bill's development. In February 1995, Time magazine published Clinton Proposes Banking Reforms. The Clinton administration proposed sweeping changes in the nation's banking system that would permit commercial banks to sell insurance and underwrite securities. Treasury Secretary Robert Rubin outlined the new proposal, which would allow banks to, quote, affiliate, end quote, with Wall Street firms, insurance companies, and other financial service providers. It would repeal several federal restrictions, including the Depression-era Glass-Steagall Act, which forbids banks from underwriting securities or selling insurance. Banks for years have been seeking a repeal of Glass-Steagall. This United States Treasury Secretary, Robert Rubin, and this Robert Rubin, who before his government service spent 26 years at Goldman Sachs serving as a member of the board and co-chairman from 1990 to 1992. Here's Time magazine's 15 February 1999 cover praising Robert Rubin, Larry Summers, and Alan Greenspan, the Committee to Save the World, the inside story of how three marketeers have prevented a global economic meltdown so far. The three marketeers convinced Congress and President Clinton to pass the Commodity Futures Modernization Act of 2000. The act's purpose was to protect credit derivatives from being regulated by the U.S. Commodities Future Trading Commission or the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, protect financial institutions from, quote, overregulation, end quote, and position the United States financial services industry to be world leaders in the new century. Larry Summers, President Clinton's U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, lobbied to repeal the Glass-Steagall Act. That's Secretary Summers on the left. President Obama chose Summers to be his director of the White House National Economic Council. In 1999, Senator Phil Gramm lobbied Republicans and Democrats in Congress to repeal the safeguards which the Glass-Steagall Act enacted. Congresswomen like Nancy Pelosi killed Glass-Steagall. Congressmen like Charles Rangel killed Glass-Steagall. Congressmen like James Clyburn killed Glass-Steagall. Senator Arlen Specter killed Glass-Steagall. Senator Chris Dodd killed Glass-Steagall. Quote, I have been a member of the Senate Banking Committee since the first day I was sworn into the Senate, almost 19 years ago. I think this effort dates to about 1967 or 1968, more than 30 years ago. This has been an ongoing debate and issue on the part of the banking committees of the Senate and the House, the Commerce Committee, and numerous efforts at the executive branch level, but certainly over the last 20 years, on numerous occasions, this body has enacted reforms to financial services only to watch the legislation die. Senator Chuck Schumer killed Glass-Steagall. As a member of the Banking Committee in the House and the Senate, Schumer worked for a decade to pass the 1999 Financial Services.
All right, folks, you get the idea. No need to belabor the point. Glass-Steagall was a very valuable piece of legislation. We trashed it. We need to get it back. Have you heard either candidate talking about that? Exactly. Item from Debka File. Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Ehud Barak are silent in the face of the avalanche of bad news coming in from official Washington. The Patriot anti-missile system scheduled for what was to have been the biggest joint U.S.-Israeli anti-missile drill in October will remain packed in tarpaulin because they come without crews. Even one, much less two, Aegis ballistic missile defense warships may not be dispatched to Israeli waters, and the number of U.S. servicemen sent over for the annual exercises to be cut by more than two-thirds to 1,500. This downgrade of U.S. participation in an annual war exercise with Israel is more than striking. It adds up to the dismemberment by the Obama administration of the entire intricate strategy U.S. and Israel have built over years for the deterrence and interception, if need be, of any Iranian, Hezbollah, Syrian missile assault on Israel. The inferences are cruel. The U.S. defense or second strike elements, which had been slotted into place by the military strategists for the two armies, will not be there. Their absence slashes the time available for Israel's alarm and interception system to spring into action. The moment the engines of Iranian ballistic missiles heading its way are fired, right down from the original estimated 14 minutes notice. It also means Barak's estimate of 500 dead in the worst case of a war with Iran must go by the board. Netanyahu and Barak have clearly been rendered speechless by the high-powered U.S. military, diplomatic, and personal onslaught on Israel and its government. Even the smooth-tongued Tzahi Hanegbi, just returned to the Likud fold, found it no easy way of whitewashing the debacle. Defense relations with the U.S. are deeper than ever before, he said unconvincingly in a radio interview Sunday morning, September 2nd, unquote. My friends, I hate to say I told you so. All right, scrap that. I love to say I told you so. Israel, Netanyahu, Ehud Barak, and the rest have sat twiddling their thumbs and appealing to the world's goodness while Iran has been developing its nuclear program. Now America, under Barack Obama, is pulling away much of the support it's been giving Israel, weakening Israel. I hope not crippling Israel, but certainly weakening it. Where does the I told you so come in? I told Israel a long time ago, 2-3 years ago, that the only way it had of making sure that nuclear missiles, God forbid, are not fired at it would be to take out Iran, destroy its nuclear capability, and send a message to the Muslim world that you cannot do this. Israel didn't bother. Israel has talked. It's postured. It's diplomaticized. And now its staunch ally, the United States, is leaving it in the lurch. Just, by the way, I'll throw this in since I'm on the air, just as the prophets foretold approximately 2,500 years ago. Ultimately, it will be good, but how many innocent people are going to need to die on the way to that happy ending? Because Netanyahu and his politicians in the Knesset are fools. Because Barack Obama is an anti-Semite, probably a closet Muslim. And because there are so many people in this country who are just rocks in the head, stupid enough to have voted for Obama, and a lot of them are going to do so again. When do we get smarter? Item from USA Stands with Israel. There are 600 millionaires living in Gaza, which mainstream media for years has reported as a humanitarian disaster and blamed Israel for what was a partial blockade of materials that could possibly be used to build weapons, manufacturing plants, and rockets aimed at Israeli civilians, unquote. My friends, those poor, starving Palestinians, those penniless Palestinians in Gaza, if we don't help them, who will? Answer, 600 millionaires living in Gaza. The picture of the poor, starving, helpless Gaza resident who needs you to survive is spin. It's public relations. It's lies. It's propaganda. I've been telling you from the beginning, these people are not victims, do not deserve American largesse, do not deserve our empathy and our sympathy. They deserve to have their asses booted out of Gaza into fill in the blank. I don't really care where they go. They need to get out of Israel. 600 millionaires living in Gaza. Item from Infowars.com. A video clip shot yesterday at Columbus, Ohio airport illustrates how the Transportation Security Administration has dreamed up a bizarre new way to waste time and taxpayer dollars by testing drinks purchased by travelers for explosives inside the airport long after they'd already passed security. The footage, and you'll see it on my Facebook page, shows TSA agents walking around the departure lounge asking to test passengers' drinks for explosive residue with a swab they hold over the lid. Now remember that this is inside the terminal, well beyond the security check and purchased inside the terminal. Just people waiting to get on the plane, writes the YouTube user who uploaded the video. My wife and son came back from a coffee shop just around the corner. Then we were approached. I asked what they were doing. One of the TSA ladies said they were checking for explosive chemicals as we were drinking. I said, really? Inside the terminal? You've got to be kidding me. I asked if they wanted to swab us all. She responded with something like, yes, sometimes we need to do that. I then asked if she wanted a urine sample. Nonetheless, the TSA is way out of control, he adds, joking that the TSA's next move could be to visit people's homes before they even leave for the airport, unquote. My friends, I find nothing funny about this news item. You can't bring drinks through security, as of a few years ago. Now, when you buy a drink inside security by the gate, they still want to check on it. They still want to swab you. What the hell? What the hell? Are we going to have proctological exams, too, right before we get on the plane? Maybe on the plane. We'll be back, for God's sake.
Just a good old boy.
Hi, I'm Eric Cedarstrom. For over a decade, I've been the CEO, shipping clerk, and janitor of the Patriot Trading Group. And in that time, I've made friends with tens of thousands of like-minded individuals all over this country, most like me, trying to raise a family, run a business, and make sense out of a world gone mad. I'm proud of the fact that through stock bubbles, housing bubbles, and financial chaos, our customers are prospering and doing very well. By keeping our prices fair and our service fast, we find that 80% of our customers not only reorder, but they tell their friends. Don't be fooled by hype and high pressure. Do business with a company you can trust. Call the Patriot Trading Group at 1-800-951-0592 or check out our website at allamericangold.com. You'll be treated with honesty and respect. You have my word on it. I'm Eric Cedarstrom, CEO, shipping clerk, and janitor.
Making their way the only way they know how.
He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 10 through 13. Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve, as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescents to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices.
Welcome back to Real Truth, my friends. You know what nullification is, don't you? That's the power that the states gave to the federal government. The states can take back. It could be the most important word in America. We'll see how it plays out. Let's listen to Judge Andrew Napolitano talking to a room full of students about nullification.
Prohibited, then it can do almost anything it wants. In fact, of course, the federal government is limited if the Constitution means what it says, unless it's this sneaky majoritarian document intended to create totalitarianism when we have a dictator like Lincoln or Franklin Roosevelt or even his cousin Theodore or the guys that have been in the White House in the past couple of terms. You'll have to decide for yourself whether the Constitution was written to permit that. But we know that at least as you read it, it is one of limited powers. Do you remember Reagan's first inaugural address? I know you do. Who has the microphone? All right. In Reagan's first inaugural address in the third paragraph, I know you remember what he said. Do you remember what he said?
The states formed the federal government.
And not the other way round. Now, if your humble temporary professor had been the author of that speech, I would have added, and the power which the states gave to the central government, they can take back. They can even nullify. Forgive me, those of you who are my generation, this is the smartest guy in the room. They can even nullify what the federal government does, as you know, a concept readily accepted, articulated in the Declaration of Independence. If we can separate from Great Britain, why can't the part of the country that hates the central government separate from the rest? Make sense to you?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay. Anybody else want to throw anything out at us?
Yeah, I want to throw out the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. Nullification. In other words, it's telling the federal government to go piss up a rope when it starts violating the Constitution, which it does. States are supposed to have more power than the central government. That's how America's supposed to work. Item from the Rutherford Institute, Dateline, Phoenix, Arizona. In the wake of Phoenix resident Dana Crow Smith being told she could not hand out free bottles of cold water to passersby without a permit during a First Friday festival in July 2012 as a means of exercising her Christian beliefs, officials with the city of Phoenix are insisting that Phoenix residents may not even give away free bottled water to passersby on private property without first paying a $350 application fee, a $30 annual license fee, and waiting an estimated 4 weeks for the application to be processed. Stop, my friends. This is a teachable moment. It's a horrible moment, but it's also a teachable moment. You go to vote every once in a while, right? Every couple of years there's someone else running for office. There's going to be one or two kind of candidates. It's either a candidate who wants bigger government or one that wants smaller government. And if you don't know which particular candidate it is, ask them. Ask. Find out where they stand on issues. We keep like drug addicts. We need our daily fix. We need our every couple of year fix of politicians who just say yes to us. Yes, we'll give you this. We'll spend that. We'll buy you this. We'll give you that. And the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, if you want to give a thirsty person a bottle of water, you've got to, what was I saying? Pay a $350 application fee, a $30 annual license fee, and wait 4 weeks for the application to be processed. Insanity! And that's on private property. If I'm standing in my front yard or in my backyard and I want to hand someone a bottle of water, the local rules say I can't. When did I become the resident of a gulag? When did my house become part of a penal institution? This is insanity. There's no sane person who would say it's not insanity. And it's increasingly the way we live. Why? Well, I know why. Because we keep voting for big spending, big government politicians, because we're not going to vote for any politician who tells us no, because so many of us are basically children. When do we grow up? We haven't got much more time. We haven't got much more time. America has reached a critical moment. We can't just keep doing business as usual. It's killing us. And with us, so much of the rest of the world that leans on us and depends on us. When do we grow up? When do we want grown-ups as our elected officials? Time is running out, my friends. This is not Peter Pan in Neverland. We got to grow up. Item from thenewamerican.com. For the second time this year, the Paul family, as in Ron Paul, has been harassed by the Transportation Security Administration. Representative Paul, his wife, and granddaughter were stopped by 8 TSA workers at a small airport in Clearwater, Florida, and told they must be screened. According to the agents, the screening was necessary because Mitt Romney, quote, might be nearby, unquote. Observers say the implication was that the Paul family poses a threat to the Republican presidential nominee, Mitt Romney. The agents inspected Paul's credentials and demanded to check the airplane for explosives. The entire incident came to an end once Ron Paul's wife, Carol, refused to be screened by TSA personnel, asserting that she wore a pacemaker, and a Paul aide began taking a video of the ordeal on his cell phone. Stop! Once the cell phone videos make their appearance, police, TSA, they suddenly learn religion. Suddenly they back off. You ever see those movies with vampires where someone pulls out a cross and the vampire goes, pull out your cell phone and point it at one of these dummies and watch them shrivel. My friends, there are no coincidences in life. If something happens, it's because it's supposed to happen. It's no coincidence that Ron Paul, his wife, and granddaughter were stopped, let alone by 8 TSA workers. After all, Ron Paul is, 71, 72? His wife is probably about the same age with a pacemaker. So obviously, they might have overpowered just 1 or 2 or 3 TSA agents, and so they needed 8. And don't they inspect the airplane every time you get on it? This is Ron Paul's payback for daring to challenge the Republican hierarchy, for daring to run for office, public office in the United States of America. Good night, nurse.
Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
If the IRS has turned your life upside down, Ameristar Tax Centers has a free, no-obligation consultation just for you. With proven experience, our former IRS agents are licensed to contact the IRS immediately for you, stop the collection activity, and get you instant help to relieve you from this burden. We guarantee not to charge you a penny unless we can help. So call for free information now.
800-519-6297. 800-519-6297. 800-519-6297.
He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 10 through 13. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Welcome back to Real Truth. I'm Howard Riell. There are a lot of people referring to the Libor scandal as the biggest banking scandal in history, and the fact that it's being ignored by the mainstream media. What is the Libor scandal? Well, if you don't know, you're about to know. Here's a video, and yes, you'll find it linked on my Facebook page. You're about to become a 4-minute expert in the Libor scandal. Listen.
The biggest banking scandal in history is being ignored by the mainstream media, and it makes what Bernie Madoff did pale in comparison, even though he ripped off people to the tune of $50 billion. Now it's known as the London Interbanking Offer Rate, or Libor scandal, and the mainstream media, for all intents and purposes, as chronicled on this article on theblaze.com and other places, is pretty much being ignored. Now, what exactly is the Libor scandal, and why does it matter? The Libor is the average interest rate that the largest banks in the world pay to borrow money. Now, this rate is used when pricing hundreds of trillions, that's what I said, hundreds of trillions of dollars with loans, including large corporate debt all the way to student loans. And because this rate is used to price high-yield debt to the biggest borrowers, it affects most other interest rates in the world. Now, just to give you an idea of the magnitude of what we're talking about here, the Libor affects 10 different currencies around the world, and there are 18 U.S. banks on the panel that determines that rate. The scandal of the Libor is that one of the largest banks in the world, Barclays, has admitted that it falsified its data so that its borrowing rates would be kept low, benefiting the company's bottom line and some of its or all of its financial trades. Now it gets worse. Barclays claims that the reason it submitted false data was because that it had reason to believe competitor banks were doing the same thing. So it sounds like many banks are involved in manipulating this very crucial rate of interest for currencies around the world. What this data is supposed to do is reflect the borrowing costs of the world's major banks. Because this data is then used to price the lending rate for short-term interest rates all over the world, it obviously needs to be accurate. Thus, it could mean that interest rates all over the world spanning 10 currencies have been manipulated so the major banks can make more money than what a truer picture of their financial health would have allowed. Because these interest rates have been manipulated, this then obviously affects the real economy all over the world. The real impact of this scandal was summed up by Tony Greenham of the New Economics Foundation to Euronews when he said, Libor drives the interest rates paid by hundreds of millions of people on their own mortgages, small businesses on their loans, student loans, insurance products. It affects a hugely diverse range of financial transactions globally, not just in the UK. And yes, it gets even deeper because the New York Fed was told of this interest rate rigging scheme as far back as 2007, as chronicled in this article here on the AP News. Now, that was obviously before the 2008 recession and the near global financial meltdown. And Time, in this article here that I linked to in the description, has even called the Libor scandal the crime of the century. Not just the financial crime of the century, the crime of the century. We are just beginning to see the tip of the proverbial iceberg with this scandal, as 15 more banks worldwide are under investigation. As a result of this interest rate manipulation, we could see huge class action lawsuits, criminal charges, and regulatory complaints, and big-time fines. But worst of all, this could do irreparable harm to the trust in the worldwide financial system at a time when many are already tired of the big bankers and Wall Street fat cats. We've got Occupy Wall Street and whatever's going on there, whether you believe it or not, what they're doing there, and who knows what they're doing there. People are really tired of the financial crimes and garbage going on with bankers and Wall Street. And if all this seems a little hard to follow, check out the links below in the description below this video. I've linked to all of the articles I mentioned here in this video. Check it out for more information. Pass along. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this.
Yeah, find the link on my Facebook page, my friends. Read it, weep, and pass it along. Item from Reuters, Dateline, Kabul. An adolescent boy and a young girl have been in two separate incidents in Afghanistan, local officials and police said on Friday. In the latest brazen attacks that have raised fresh questions about a splintering Taliban. Stop! They don't raise any questions about the Taliban as far as I'm concerned. A lot bigger than that. I know the Taliban. It raises questions about Islam itself. How many beheadings have we heard of? All Muslims. I continue. A 12-year-old boy was kidnapped and killed in southern Kandahar province on Wednesday. His severed head placed near his body to send a warning to police, said provincial governor spokesman Jawed Faisal. The brother of the boy, neither of whom were named by officials, was a member of the Afghan local police, a U.S.-trained militia. Separately, a 6-year-old girl was beheaded in eastern Kapisa province on Thursday, said provincial police chief Abdul Hamed. We are not sure if she was beheaded by her family or the Taliban, but we know the Taliban control the area, Hamed said. Stop. Let's back it up just a wee bit. This investigator, this police chief, quote, we're not sure if she was beheaded by her family or the Taliban, unquote. Well, my friends, a lot of Muslims in the world, a lot of beheadings in the world, all done by Muslims. Are they being done by the crazed Taliban, whom we are told are the bad guys? I'm sure they're bad guys. Or was it done by this 6-year-old girl's family? You and I might think, oh, that's ludicrous, but apparently Provincial Police Chief Abdul Hamed doesn't. He's investigating it. We continue. The murders follow the shooting or beheading of 17 young revelers attending a party in southern Helmand province this week, which officials said was the work of the Taliban. The charge the group also denied, unquote. My friends, tell me, once your head has been chopped off and it's laying on the ground, blood gushing not only from your head, but from the stump on your neck, explain what difference does it make? Who's responsible for it? At that point, I'm guessing it's pretty much a non-issue. We'll be back.
The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own inheritance. Psalm 33, verses 10 through 12.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the America News Network.
Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
Welcome back to Real Truth. We're just about off the air. 4 minutes to go. Let's make them count. Item from RedAlertPolitics.com. MSNBC wants you to think the Republican Party hates minorities. So much so that the liberal news network cut minority speeches from its convention coverage. When popular Tea Party candidate Ted Cruz, the GOP nominee for Senate, took the stage, MSNBC cut away from the Republican National Convention and the Hispanic Republican from Texas's speech. MSNBC stayed on commercial through former Democratic Representative Arthur Davis's speech as well. Davis, who recently became a Republican, is black. Then, when Puerto Rican Governor Luis Fortuno's wife, Lucia Vela Fortuno, took the stage minutes later, MSNBC hosts Rachel Maddow and Chris Matthews opted to talk over the First Lady's speech. And Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval, notably missing from MSNBC, too. Mia Love, a black candidate for Congress in Utah, was also ignored by MSNBC, unquote. Why? Well, it's obvious, my friends. The Democrats, meaning the media, the liberals, want everyone in America to think that conservatives, Republicans, are racist. If they see people from different races speaking at the convention, they'll know that's not true, and so the only people you will see on TV, on MSNBC, speaking at the Republican convention are lily white Republicans. See? They're racist. See? We have no news media. Item from governmentslaves.info. National Republican Party officials on Wednesday, that's last week, put their party officially on record opposing the United Nations attempts, some backed by Democrats in Congress, to assess a special tax on Americans and give the money to third world nations. In the resolution, the Republican National Committee made clear its objection to, quote, 3 global taxes and a global monetary governance mechanism to raise $400 billion a year to aid developing countries, unquote. The move also could have the practical effect of complicating the ability of the U.S. to participate in such international accords as the Law of the Sea Treaty, which the U.S. Senate has never ratified, and successor agreements to the Kyoto Global Warming Pact. The resolution passed at a meeting leading up to this week's presidential nominating convention, cites in particular reports that Otmar Edenhofer, an official with the UN's major international panel dealing with climate change issue, quote, claimed that climate change policy was a way to redistribute wealth globally, unquote. To Mr. Edenhofer and his friends at the United Nations who want my income, you may all, together or individually, kiss my backside. Item from the Atlantic Wire. In the wake of Todd Aiken's comments about pregnancy rarely resulting from, quote, legitimate rape, lawyer Shauna Pruitt highlights a reality for women in that situation in a column on CNN. In a majority of states, attackers, that is rapists, are afforded the same rights as other fathers, unquote. My friends, insanity. When did America become insane? If a man rapes a woman, he gets visitation in a majority of states. How insane can we be? If we can't fix this, We can't fix anything. And by the way, the corollary to this also disturbs me. If a rapist has the same rights that I have as a father, that means that I, as a father, have the rights of a rapist. Chew on that for the next 23 hours. Think about it. My name is Howard Riell. The show is called Real Truth. I'll be back tomorrow with more of it. I hope you're ready, because like it or not, it's on its way. Hasta luego.